This is a young team that I think everybody is pretty surprised by. The OKC Thunder are 5-6. They're 11th in the West, tied for 9th. And right now they have 6 players scoring in double figures. Shea is scoring 20 points per game. Diallo, 12 points per game. Luguentz Dort, 12 points per game. And he's shooting 44% from the 3. George Hill is averaging 12. Horford, 11. Basley, 10.5. And 8 rebounds per game.
And Hamidou has been playing last 3 games, is playing really good.
So Basley's pretty much averaging a double-double with 10.5 points per game and 8 rebounds. And Isaiah Roby has been a good young player, too, for them. Poku has struggled from the field. I think he's shooting like 27% from the field. And so is Teo Maledon. But this team, I think I kind of underestimated them going into the season. Like, I thought they were going to be competitive. Whether that competitiveness was going to translate into wins, I was not sure. But they have been really competitive, and everybody has been playing well. This leap from Luguentz Dort to be a player that cannot shoot at all to now shooting 44% from the 3. Granted, it's a small sample size, but he's shooting about 6 threes every game. You know, he's hitting those shots.
And he's an elite defender.
Yeah, and I'm like, damn, why can't RJ Barrett do that? RJ Barrett can't shoot, and Luguentz Dort had the broke jump shot and cannot, and now he can shoot.
It's called the grind.
But for me, I'm very impressed with this team, and I don't even know if they trade Horford or George Hill. I think they fit well. And like I said, when we did our team previews, they have a lot of spacing around Shea. Now that Dort can hit shots, now that spacing is even more. But George Hill, Dort, you have Al Horford. And I forgot, and Basley, he can shoot too. He can stretch out the floor. So this team right now, Shea is getting to work, and he's averaging 20 points per game. He's improved once again. I think this team has really impressed me so far.
And like you said, I know it's a small sample size, only about 9-10 games, but still, we expected this team to maybe have one win at this point, and they've been pressed, they've competed, they've worked hard, and it's a good sign from the top to the bottom because you now know what you're gonna get out of these young guys. These young guys, okay, these are the guys I can rock with, and with these old veteran talent, this is George Hill. Even if you don't want to flip him, you can flip him for another first rounder. Al Horford's going to be a little bit more difficult with $27 million, but that's another guy you can get some picks out of. And we've seen Sam Presti make incredible moves the last 2-3 years, so we don't know what he's going to do. But looking at it from this team being this competitive, this team has a bright future. They're going to be great going on next year. And I think with the cap coming in, when they're going to have cap, they're going to be a definite landing spot for the next draft class in 2022.
Yeah, and let me just say this. Before I get into their team right now, this is before we look at them over the next 5 to 6 years in 2021. Their own pick plus the better of the Heat or Rockets picks plus the Warriors pick if it's outside the top 20. 2022, their own pick if it's inside the top 14 plus the Clippers pick plus the Suns pick if it's outside the top 13. 2023, an option to swap the Clippers, plus a Heat pick if it's outside the top 15, plus the Suns pick if it's outside the top 11. 24, their own pick, the Clippers pick, the Rockets pick if it's outside the top 5, the Heat pick if it's outside the top 15, the Suns pick if it's outside the top 9. 25, their own pick with the option to swap the Rockets or Clippers, the Sixers pick, the Heat pick if it's outside the top 15, and the Suns pick. And then in 2026, their own pick, the Rockets pick if it's outside the top 5, the Clippers pick, and the Heat pick. So they have a ridiculous haul of picks coming up over the next 5 to 6 years. And you're already looking at a roster. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander
21
is a young budding star. He's improved every year we've seen him. And now with that ball in his hands, controlling the offense, he's looked great. Hamid Diallo, I think, has become better than anybody really expected him to be. He's a really nice piece on this team, and I think he's somebody that they're going to include in their future plans, if not as a trade piece. Lou Dort, I think he's definitely a part of their future. He's an elite defender already. Like you said, he's figured out the three-point shot. He can really play. Nobody expected that. Darius Bazley's been great. Isaiah Roby in limited minutes has been really exciting to watch at points. And then they have Poku and Teo Maledon coming off the bench. They haven't been great so far, but there's a lot of potential in those two guys. And that's without getting to the picks. So I just can't wait to see when they flip that switch and they say, okay, we're in competing mode. They're going to have a GM's dream of a rebuild planned out for. Like, you cannot put yourself in a better spot. And there's going to be some teams coming up over the next few years, because you look at where the Lakers are at, you look at where the Nets are at. Just those two teams alone, even the Bucks with what they have going on, those three teams are not going anywhere. So teams that have superstars and maybe could be contending will not be contending and will be looking to sell off their players, like Bradley Beal in Washington, like potentially Zach LaVine in Chicago. There will be more examples to pop up, and the Thunder are just they're going to be like sharks. They're going to attack on every superstar that wants out. They'll have their choice of whatever they want.
You think so?
With all of the picks, they'll have their choice of guys that they want to bring in. Because they have the money, they have the picks, they have the assets. So whatever deal, like, you look at when the Nets were looking at James Harden, it was, okay, how can we put together this package? What do we have? Same thing with the Sixers, with the Heat. Do we want to give up that much? The Thunder could have made a James Harden trade and still had 10 picks over the next 5 years, enough money for another max contract, and still kept Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So they have a ridiculous amount of assets.
I don't think OKC will ever go after and trade for a superstar, because the reason why that OKC didn't go after Harden, of course, is because they're not in the position to.
Yeah.
But also, when you're a small market team, players are most likely not going to stay. So there is no point to trade a bunch of assets for a star like that. I think OKC has one plan and one plan only: building this thing through the draft. That's it. I don't think they're trying to, have a bunch of picks to get a superstar. I think it's straight building through the draft. And they're hoping they get Cade Cunningham in this draft. That's their dream. But I think they're just looking to build through this draft. When's the last time a small market team has traded for a superstar?
Well, no small market team has had this.
That's true.
I mean, they did the same thing getting Paul George from the Pacers when they did that.
That would be them, right?
But I just think about, like, a team like the Wizards, I would consider made a mistake giving Bradley Beal that big contract. They did what they had to do, but it was a mistake because they're not competing.
Wait, quick question. Was Toronto a small market team before they traded for Kawhi?
I guess you could classify them as a small market.
But I just, even though guys might not stay, I think there will be teams that make mistakes in giving big contracts to superstars when they're not in the position to do that.
I don't think it's a mistake, because I think it's a mistake for Bradley Beal to sign it. But
yeah,
for Washington, if they hadn't done that, they will get nothing in return for him.
I think he did
but
it for
you
the
get
money
what I'm
purposes,
saying.
though.
That contract is not helping either side. It's not. The only way it will help the Wizards is if it gets assets back in return, because all he's doing right now is making them better than the worst team in the Eastern Conference, taking them out of better draft position, to be frank. And for Bradley Beal, he's wasting his time there. So how long is he really going to want to be there wasting his career in Washington if they don't
that's
start
true.
So I just think,
get traded.
I think there will be more contracts like that where he has 3 years on his deal, but it's clear nothing's going to happen in those 3 years. And he could force his way out, and the Wizards pretty much have to deal him. It's a players' league.
I think George Hill's going to be a big guy on the market at the trade deadline. It's going to be somebody.
I wanted the Knicks to get him.
For real?
Yeah.
There's going to be a bunch of teams that are looking for a guard. I know the Clippers are one who still haven't figured out their playmaker at the point guard position.
George Hill.
So there's going to be teams that are looking for George Hill and will overpay for him. I don't know about Al Horford. He's making a lot of money.
Yeah, I think he'll be there.
He'll probably play out his contract, but that doesn't. They got assets out of that deal.
I think
so
the OKC, the thing about it is with them, they're doing what a lot of teams don't. A lot of GMs don't have, and that's patience. They have the patience to wait. They've seen their success. They've been to the finals. They didn't win, but they've been to the finals. They've been to multiple WCFs. They know what it's like to be at the top of the food chain in the regular season and in the playoffs. So I feel like the patience is what's gonna come. Even when KD, Westbrook, and Harden got there, before that, they weren't a good team. It was patience. KD got there. They got KD, then they got Westbrook, then they got Harden. It was like, all right, we have these guys. So I think that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna play the wait game, run it through the draft. If they can get a big free agent, they'll pitch it to him. If not, I don't think they're going to be too mad about it, though.
It's the same thing with Charlotte. I mean, in order for OKC to get a big free agent, they have to overpay. And in a trade, it's just so risky to try to go out and get a superstar in a trade because they want to leave. Paul George, yeah, they traded a lot for him, but he wanted to go to L.A. You know, they want to leave. They don't want to stay.
The crazy thing is, though, they could take that risk and be fine. Like, they could take that risk, have the player leave the next day, and they would still be in, like, a normal position for a rebuilding team with the amount of picks they would have and young assets still. It's going to be really fun to see how they do it. Like, I'm excited to see what direction they go. Are they going to get a superstar in this draft? And then it's like, you don't even have to worry about free agents. You have Shea and whoever you get in this draft, and you're off and running. So it's going to be really awesome to see how they figure it out.